coming at you live from downtown Hamburg tonight. And here we are, we're going to talk about shifting parabolas and completing the square. So take good notes. We've got two topics wrapped up in here, and we look forward to talking about this tomorrow. Alright, so let's just start off with what a parabola looks like. Okay, so a parabola has that x squared term in it, and we're going to make a little sketch. Alright, and it's a positive x squared, so that tells me that it's opening upwards, and it starts at the origin 0, 0, and it opens upward as like so. Okay, and it's symmetric to the y-axis. And let's just go ahead and label this point here. This point has a few names. You can call this the vertex or the turning point. Now let's say we had y equals negative x squared. Can you recall what the difference is between the positive x squared and negative x squared? Well, you've probably guessed it, and we'll make another quick little sketch. If you have a negative, your parabola still starts at the origin, but instead of kind of smiling and happy, it's now frowning, and that's what that negative is telling us, basically reflected over the x-axis. Alright, now how do we graph these? Well, our goal is to get this into vertex form. Okay, so let's go ahead and copy our vertex form down. That's y equals x minus h squared plus k. And what we need to know is that the hk value is the vertex or the turning point. So here's what we can say. If I tell you the parabola looks like x minus 3 squared plus 2, you should be able to tell me exactly where this graph is sitting on the coordinate plane. So let's talk it out. Inside here, remember, this is my hk. That tells me the coordinates. So I'm going to say my coordinates of my turning point are actually positive 3, positive 2. Now, maybe you got lost on why I put a positive instead of a negative here. Let me just go back to that formula. The formula says it's x minus h, and the vertex is positive h. So it's always the opposite sign there. Okay, we talked about this a while ago. Right in here, just kind of make a note to yourself. This is the horizontal shift, and the key is that you do the opposite amount. And this number that you add on is the vertical shift, and that basically just goes up or down. Okay, so by me giving you that equation, you should be able to quickly sketch this parabola. This is telling me 3 to the right, 1, 2, 3, and then 2 up, 1, 2. And from there, I'll just determine whether I'm a positive or negative parabola, and it's a positive x squared, so it's going to open upward here. And again, you should be able to quickly get that out of this equation in vertex form. Same idea. Let me give you y equals x plus 1 squared minus 5. Alright, take 5 seconds, pause it, come up with the vertex of this equation, and then make a quick sketch. Good luck. Alright, well, hopefully you figured it out. You are going horizontal and vertical shift. Horizontal's inside, and if I see a positive 1, I'm actually going left 1 and then down 5. So I'll just plot that point, left 1 and then down 5, make my point, and say that's a positive x squared, so I know my parabola looks like this. Alright, now you might be thinking, well, that's pretty simple, and you're right, it is. The only problem is, if it's not in vertex form, we have to complete the square. So let's quickly get these in our notes here. Let's get these few steps written down so we recall them. Step number 1, we're going to take the x term, cut it in half, square it, and then add it and subtract it. When you add and subtract the same number, let's say you add 5 and subtract 5, basically that's like adding and subtracting 0, and you're not affecting the problem at all. Second, we're going to factor the first 3 terms. Alright, let's work the first one out together. Okay, so I need to know what the vertex of this parabola is. That's the question. And then I want to quickly sketch it. Okay, so I got to state the vertex. It's not in the right form, so we're going to complete the square. We're going to take the x term, so it's positive 12. We're going to cut it in half. 12 divided by 2 is 6. And then you square it. 6 squared is 36. So we're going to add and subtract that number in that order. Now watch where I put them. I'm going to say y equals x squared plus 12x, and here's where you stick them in. Plus 36 and minus 36. And then you still have your plus 50. Okay, so notice we put them right next to each other together, the positive one first, the negative one second. And now we take those first three terms and factor, okay, just those first three. And they should factor to the same set of terms. That's what's so nice about this. X plus 6 and x plus 6. And then I'm going to go ahead and box these two in and add these together. Negative 36 plus 50. I'm going to get a positive 14. Okay, so I've got y equals x plus 6 times x plus 6 plus 14. And now these two together, there's two of them, so I can say that's x plus 6 squared plus 14. Now look how simple this is to state the vertex. Okay, the vertex, or turning point, would be negative 6, positive 14. And again, the sketch would be very simple. I would go left 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, up 14, which I'm going to say is up there, and I would make my upwards facing parabola. That's simple. All right, your turn. Same idea. I want you to put this in vertex form and then state the vertex. Okay, don't cheat yourself. Pause it, see what you get. Good luck, and then turn me back on when you're ready. All right, I'll quickly walk through my steps. I'm going to take this negative 10, cut her in half. Negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. Square it, and I get 25. So notice, again, I left that space and put two blank lines if that helps. I'm going to add 25 and subtract 25. Okay, wrap those three bears up in the beginning. Let's factor those. So I'm going to get y equals, and they should be the same term, x minus 5 and x minus 5. And then I'm going to add these two together. Negative 25 plus 7 gets me negative 18. All right, I'm almost there, one step away. I can say this is actually x minus 5 squared minus 18. And then from that point, pretty straightforward. Let's just say our vertex would be 5, negative 18. Remember, that's my horizontal shift, my vertical shift, and I can graph that. 5, negative 18 would be way down there in a nice parabola. All right, our next little section takes it a little further. So now we're going to solve quadratics by completing the square. And the key word here is solving. So the steps are pretty similar. We're going to follow the steps to complete the square, and then we're going to add an extra step on. Basically, make sure you solve for x. Let's try a few. All right, example 1. Notice it doesn't say y equals anymore. We have x squared minus 10x plus 23 equals 0. So you're not putting it in vertex form. You're literally solving for x. If you try to factor, it's not possible. The only numbers that multiply to 23 are 23 and 1, and you can't factor. Now you could use quadratic formula, but unfortunately the direction said you had to complete the square. So here, we're going to do it the same way. We're going to take that x term, we're going to cut her in half. I get negative 5, square it, and you get your 25. So that's what we're going to add and subtract again. Very similar steps. So x squared minus 10x, add the 25, subtract the 25, and then we still have our plus 23 equals 0. All right, wrap those first three puppies up. Let's factor those, and that factors to x minus 5 and x minus 5. We'll box these two in and add them together, and that gets me a minus 2 equals 0. Okay, keep going. We're going to get x minus 5 squared minus 2 equals 0. Now at this point, if it asked you the vertex, I'm sure we could all say the vertex would be 5, negative 2. But that's not what it says. The direction said get x by itself. So what does your gut tell you to do first? How would you get this x by itself? Hopefully you're saying move this 2 over. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add 2 to both sides. So I've got x minus 5 squared equals 2. Now keep talking out loud. You got to get to that x. Who's in your way next? Hopefully you're saying that square is. How do you get rid of a square? Well, we all know this. We take the square root. Now don't forget, when you take that square root, you need to put plus and minus that square root. Those zap out, and I've got x minus 5 equals plus or minus radical 2. One last step to get this x here by itself, I would simply just add the 5 over. Notice where I'm putting it. Make sure you put it before the plus and minus. I should get 5 plus or minus radical 2. And that's my final answer. Now remember, there's actually two answers there. There is 5 plus radical 2, and there is 5 minus radical 2. And there you did it. We completed the square and solved for x. So I should say x equals and x equals. All right, let's try another similar example. x squared plus 12x equals negative 18. Now my first gut is to always set this thing equal to 0 first. X squared plus 12x plus 18 equals 0. Because I want to see if I can factor. It's always easy to factor. So I can come up with, let's see, 9 and 2, that doesn't work. 6 and 3, that doesn't work. 18 and 1, that doesn't work. Doesn't look like factoring works. So let's go back to the complete the square method. Take that middle term, cut it in half. 12 divided by 2 is 6. Square it, and we get that 36. All right, let's carefully put her in. X squared plus 12x, add it and subtract it. And then let's keep that plus 18 equals 0. Bracket those first three in. They should factor real nice. I'm going with x plus 6 and x plus 6. Okay, we'll box the next two in. Negative 36 plus 18 is a negative 18 equals 0. And we'll just keep going here. This is really x plus 6 squared minus 18. So again, if they asked you what was the vertex, you should be able to say negative 6, negative 18. But that's not the question again. We want to get x by itself. So same two moves, just move that 18 over. So I'm going to get x plus 6 squared equals 18. All right, now what do we do to both sides? Take that square root. Yep, you got it. And don't forget the plus minus. So x plus 6 equals plus or minus radical 18. Lastly, I'm going to subtract that 6 over, and I'm going to say x equals, put it in front, negative 6 plus or minus radical 18. Now there's a little bear trap there. We are not simplified. We are not done whatsoever. That radical 18 can get broken down. So I'm going to say this is x equals negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 9 times the square root of 2. That would get me 18. And this 9 can come out into a 3. Now notice it is on this side of the plus minus. Do not put those together. Just write them down in their correct spots, and you're good to go. We get negative 6 plus or minus 3 radical 2. All right, our next example has one big rule in here we have to keep straight, and that is the coefficient of the x squared term must be a 1. Okay, so what happens if it's not? Let's get that in our notebook. If not, divide by that coefficient. All right, and we'll walk through a nice easy example of that. So let's say we have 2x squared minus 20 equals 70. Okay, now you can't just take that, oops, I missed my x there. 2x squared minus 20x equals 70. So we can't just take that middle term and cut it in half. That's not allowed if and only if this number is not a 1. Okay, so what are we going to do about it? Well, basically, I'm just going to divide everybody I see by the number 2. That's simple. So divide every single term by the number 2. Now I have the x squared minus 10x equals 35. And now I'm going to go about my same business and do exactly what I did before. Okay, but make sure that number is a 1. So I'm going to set this equal to 0. X squared minus 10x minus 35 equals 0. All right, we'll do our business. Why don't you pause it, see what you get. I'll let you peek at mine. Hopefully you're in the same spot there. Cut that middle term in half now. Squared it, added and subtracted. So I'm going to say this is x minus 5 squared minus 60 equals 0. And again, if they ask me that vertex, I would say positive 5, negative 60, and I can easily describe the horizontal and vertical shift. Lastly, I'm going to solve this, so I'm going to say x minus 5 squared equals 60. Take that square root, don't forget my plus minus. X minus 5 equals plus or minus radical 60. And then lastly, add over that 5. So x equals 5 plus or minus radical 60. All right, so one more step to go there. I'm not done unless my radical is simplified. I certainly can't break down a 5. That's not in a radical, but I can break down a 60. I'm thinking 4 times 15, and that 4 turns into a 2. Notice it's on this side of the plus minus, so it does not go with that 5. It's x equals 5 plus or minus 2 radical 15. And there we have it. All right, so hopefully you've got some good notes in there, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Have a great night.